welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. We are back and we are ready to go. And you might be surprised to hear this, but the Wolverines not quite done. Not quite done with the 2025 recruiting class. At least they hope they are not done. They think they are not done. Jerome Moore said, "Not so fast, my friend." In his quest for a top 5 recruiting class, in his first recruiting class as the head football coach of the Michigan football team. Joining me, as they do, on the Michigan Recruiting Insider, the best recruiting staff, the best staff in the land on the Michigan Insider, my man, Steve Lorenz. Steve, how are you?
Good. Hold up. Waiting for this weather to pass. So this is one of those times where working at home is a good thing. Not having to go out, do anything like that. The weather's been pretty crazy. I don't know about you guys. It's been a nightmare over here. I mean, there's over a foot of snow outside. So, but yeah.
Oh yeah, you get lake effect out there, don't you?
Yeah. Yup. I'm like right on the very edge of where the lake effect still kind of impacts. So it's been a pretty crazy last like 4 or 5 days as far as the weather goes. So
yeah, no, we don't get that. We got a dusting of snow. It's just been the frigid temperatures. As Brice Marich knows quite well. Brice, how are you?
Pretty good. I can now rehearse the whole movie Moana. So if anyone ever needs that done, I can do that.
Hey man, that's what you got to do as a girl dad.
That's what you got to do.
You got to get ready. So what we hope, of course, we get things rolling as we get back rolling with the regular episodes. We hope that we get this episode and then we get a commit reaction episode. That's what we hope that we can do in between the regular rhythm episodes. That can be the plan. We hope, right? Whatever the case, we can tell you that these episodes will be brought to you by our proud sponsors, one of which our friends over at Wolverine. Wolverine boots, our partners, and Wolverine apparel. I'm wearing some of the Wolverine gear right now. This Wolverine University of Michigan Bucksaw hooded flannel shirt jack is one of my favorites this time of year because of its versatility. I can go out in the frigid temperature and I can be warm. I can throw on the hood, go outside, I can pull in the trash. I can come inside and I'm still, it's a shirt. Go outside, it's a jacket. It's the versatility. I'm wearing maize and blue. See, this is the kind of apparel, and it still has the Block M on it as well. This is the kind of gear that the Wolverines, and I'm talking about the Michigan Wolverines, the team members were wearing all year long. The Michigan team members that began endorsing the brand were wearing. Guys like Colston Loveland, Mason Graham, Will Johnson. Proud endorsers, and not just members of the Michigan football team, but you go across the sports spectrum. And you're going to continue to see those kinds of partnerships because the blue collar aspect of Michigan athletics, synonymous with the blue collar brand that Wolverine has come to represent in the lifespan of that brand that we've seen over the course of time. So as you look at all of their gear, from the boots to the apparel and the durability, you'll see that not only is it fashionable, but it is also versatile. And then it also represents what the student athletes are about. And it represents the hardcore and hard-working people of the state of Michigan and beyond, the blue-collar work ethic. So you can go to Wolverine.com. And if you want to shop the maize and blue line, Ben, if you can put up the website for people who want to shop the maize and blue line, the blue collar Michigan line. You can shop that on the website right now. They're offering 15% off. You can do that. And of course, any of that gear is going to be available, and you can continue to support the Michigan student athletes and their support of the Wolverine brand through their NIL efforts as well. Not just now, but into the future through their NIL partnerships with Wolverine. With that, let's go ahead and get into what the folks want to hear about, fellas. And that is Ty Haywood, the 5-star offensive lineman that used to be committed to Alabama. I think it was not a surprise when he decommitted from Bama. I think we all expected that to be the case. And, when he decommitted, I think a lot of people just assumed it was Michigan that was going to be the benefactor. I think it is leaning Michigan. Would you say that it's a done deal for Michigan at this point?
No, I mean, that's what we were talking before. Like, the days of like lock and it's over, like until the papers actually sign, like it's not a thing anymore. You really can't, what do you say, count your chickens before they hatch anymore as far as recruiting goes with NIL being involved. So no, the biggest surprise to me is that he waited till after the first signing day to decommit. I mean, it felt like the rumors of him decommitting were like, what, 3 weeks, a month before first signing day. So, matter of fact, I feel like on signing day that Alabama was already not treating him as a part of their class, So, it was inevitable that he was going to open it back up. But again, it's also inevitable that schools are going to try to make a run at him. So, not a done deal. I agree with you though, Sam. I think, if I had to pick a school right now, it would definitely be Michigan, but Texas Tech and then probably more prominently Florida State are kind of on the periphery there. But, if you're Michigan, you're getting close to the finish line to signing two big time tackle prospects. If you can match Haywood up with Babalola and you add in Strayhorn's an in-stater for all intents and purposes. So the two in-staters with Avery Gatch and Caden Strayhorn, you've signed two back-to-back recruiting wise, have signed two really good classes back-to-back.
Yeah, man. This is a quest for what would be the best offensive line class in the history of the program. They already have the best offensive lineman as far as recruit. We don't know if he will be the actual best offensive lineman in the history. You actually have to see how he performs to know if he will be the best lineman in the history of the program, right? When all is said and done. But will this be the best offensive line class as far as ranking in the history of the program? That very well could be the case if they add Ty Haywood to the fold. A gargantuan class if they add the number 20 guy to the fold. And it seems like if it's not a lot, Brice, certainly seems like it's at least leaning that way, wouldn't you say?
I would say Michigan's in the driver's seat. That's kind of how I would position it. The problem is he's now got to park the car and say everything's safe. He's still driving. He's still on the highway. I think, and we talked about this with how NIL works, and it takes one phone call. That's the thing. It takes one phone call on this type of day and age of recruiting where a kid could be leaning away. He gets that call that, hey, this school is willing to pay up. We really like you. You could start everything. We throw everything at you. And that recruitment could flip on its head. And I think that's why you, Steve, all of us have been very cautious on not putting in a pick in. That's not to say we feel like it's not going to happen. But I think when we put in our crystal ball predictions, we feel pretty good that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, right? I think with this one, we don't even know if he's going to take a visit this upcoming weekend. This is still an opportunity before the second signing period. He could take a trip. to whoever, right? A new school could emerge and say, hey, come up on a visit. Let's talk some stuff. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk football. Let's talk everything and figure this out and make this deal happen. And so I think from our perspective, we're just on a safeguard where we're not going to, just throw out picks because that's just not how we operate. But in saying that, I feel really good. I think, like you said, you feel really good. And for me, and I put this on the board, if you were going to build an offense by Sherrone Moore, what better to have an offense with the number one player in America at quarterback, Bryce Underwood, and then bookend tackle, 5-star tackle, another 5-star tackle. Like that's you probably couldn't envision a better offensive kind of start and structure going forward. So I'm really, really impressed by the job Michigan's done. They've been recruiting him mid-season. This is not like a recruitment that they kind of just winged in one day or like, let's try Ty Haywood, right? No, this has been a recruitment they've been working on for quite some time. Grant Newsome, Sherrone Moore's been very hands-on in this recruitment. And so if they can make it happen, man, that offensive line room, Sam, has a huge, bright future. I mean, and I hate to say this, but you do think ahead sometimes. An offensive line consisting of like Andrew Sprague, Andrew Babaloa, Ty Haywood, who knows who you're going to have at center, but you could see a couple guys, Jay Quinera, maybe a Blake Frazier slides in. I mean, there's so many top possibilities. I'm really, really intrigued of offensive line and how that could play out in the future if this happens as well.
Yeah, this is an epic battle for them. If they can pull it off, it would be unbelievable. I think as things stand right now, this visit was substantive for a couple of reasons. Number one, he got his mom up. I think that was significant. I think that was maybe the most beneficial thing. I think I wrote about this. You got a chance to let him get around the players for an extended period of time. I think the NIL, as much as people make this about NIL, I think Michigan had really done a lot of the heavy lifting there already. Not to say it was insignificant to be able to emphasize that, excuse me, even more. But I think Michigan has made it clear that they are stomping with the big dogs as far as that's concerned. But at this point, I think that he has done a good job of keeping his deliberations kind of close to the vest. What is it right now? This is Thursday. Recording is Thursday. I don't think Michigan knows as of right now what he's gonna be doing as far as his last weekend. He was kind of leaving open the possibility of taking one last visit. As where, I'm not sure. He said he might go somewhere. I think Michigan was feeling really good about where it stood. I think conventional wisdom is that Michigan leads. I think if you talk to Florida State people, I think they would say Michigan leads. I think all the other known participants probably feel like Michigan leads right now. Like if you talk to the other team sites that are covering this, would feel like Michigan leads right now. I think if you talk to Michigan, I think they feel pretty good. I think they feel optimistic about their position. But I also think they aren't shooting off. I wrote this. They aren't shooting off fireworks saying we got it. Like if you were comparing this to the Brice Underwood scenario, I think that they were probably they were probably feeling more certain closer to the end of Brice's recruitment than they are this one, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying they aren't feeling good. Not saying that they don't think that this one is leaning their direction. But I think that they were more certain about what the outcome was closer to the end of Brice's than they are this one. So, if you are in the crystal ball forecast business, it's a lot harder to be like 8, 9 crystal ball for, confidence level. It's a lot harder to do that because I don't even think Sharon Moore would do that right now. I think Sharon Moore would be like, I feel really good, but he hadn't really told me, yeah, coach, I'm coming for sure. I think that's what Sharon Moore would say. I'm speculating. I'm not saying what he said. I'm just speculating how he might be feeling about things right now. So feel good, feel confident, feel like things are leaning Michigan's way, but don't get cocky. Don't feel like it's in the bag. You gotta hold on. You make it through the weekend and you don't hear anything has kind of swung some other way, then you're probably home free at that point. At that point, fellas. That's how I feel about it anyway. And if you got it like, woo, now you're looking really good. So
big time, right? Yeah, like you're stacking two big time classes back to back. Andrew Sprague looked good against Alabama for a true freshman starting, against an SEC opponent. Evan Link looked better when they switched him over to the other side, right? So it's like all of a sudden you got a nice mix of recruiting success up front and portal success up front. Although I think we would like to see them maybe make another run at or make more runs at guys in the portal. But yeah, you're stacking back to back big time classes if you can get Haywood.
And and there are other guys. Let's not forget. I think Michigan has done some good work in the in offensive line recruiting in recent cycles. I think Blake Frazier is going to be a guy. Have people forgot about Blake Frazier? I think Blake Frazier was just light. I think he just needed to add weight, not to get derailed from current recruiting. But I think that there are guys in the hopper.
Well, he was hurt. He was hurt. That's the other thing. You know what I mean? He was hurt. So that's what I know from him. He's got that position flexibility. And I think that's a nice thing with Ty Haywood. Like he might not be a tackle.
Could be a swing guy. Yeah, like those other guys in the 24 cycle, right? You mentioned Blake Frazier. I think Ben Roebuck has a lot of upside. That was a nice pull. Jake Guarnera, I believe, was specifically mentioned last spring because he enrolled early. He was mentioned last spring as a guy who's picking it up right away. Michigan was super, super high on Caden Strayhorn. That was not just a let's take the son of Michigan State football announcer, type Victor. Like they really liked his passion for the game and his ability as well. So yeah, no, Grant's done a great job picking up where Sharon sort of left off as far as the offensive line recruiting goes. And, we won't talk about it today, but a little bit, but the 26 offensive line class has a chance to be really, really good too. So.
Yep. I agree, fellas. All right. So let's switch gears and talk about coaches on the road. Coaches on the road recruiting. And, one of the things that I talked about as it relates to the sort of the Wink Martindale deal and with him being courted by the NFL a little bit in interviews, and obviously it looks like Wink is going to be staying put. And I say looks like because the jobs that he was interviewing for have all been filled. That's not to say that other teams won't be interested, but all the jobs he was known to be interviewing for have been filled so far. And so, that one of the perks of the Michigan job right now is he's not on the road. You got Sean McGee on the road. You got one of the Michigan GAs. Which one is it, Brice?
Lionel Stokes.
Yeah, Lionel Stokes on the
Not
road.
Richmond.
Yeah. So, you have the benefit, if you're Wink, of not being on the road right now. That's a luxury that has been afforded him, right? And Jerome Moore has been on the road like, guys, he's on the road like an assistant right now. I mean, all over the place. Like, and like 5-6 schools in a day. That's what he did in Virginia here recently. But before he went to Virginia, Steve, I know one of the stops he made was with some of the coaches down in the state of Georgia to see a running back recruit. One of the top running back recruits on their board, a kid by the name of Amari Latimer. Now, we talked about Savion Osborne. We talked about Hiter a lot so far, and we're going to talk about him a little bit here in a bit. But we haven't talked about Amari Latimer very much. So is that a kid that Michigan has a decent shot at? I asked that because Jerome Moore made a stop by his school. So tell us about Amari Latimer. And is that a guy that Michigan fans should get excited about? Do they have a decent shot at him?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue that Michigan and Texas have very similar. Texas not involved with Hiter, but as far as Latimer and Savion Osborne, Michigan and Texas are both really high on both guys, right? Our Hank South, who does a great job, used to cover Alabama, covers Texas now, actually put in a crystal ball for the Longhorns with Latimer. I'd argue that Latimer's, which is, if you look at the rankings real quick, there's like 5 or 6 4-star top 200 running backs that are off of one highway in the state of Texas in 2026. It is insane what they have. But all that being said, to say is like that Texas, I think Amari Latimer is like at the top of that board with all those other guys. So I think right now, I would think Texas is probably out front there. I'm guessing though, if Sharon made the time to stop, because we've talked a lot about Osborne and Hiter. I think it's probably safe to say those are the top 2 targets on their running back board, but Latimer might be that third guy as of right now. But I would say Texas as things stand. I know there was Tashard Choice, who's the running backs coach there. A guy who's probably going to be pursued every offseason by somebody. Basically, the idea was if he left for the NFL, which there were some NFL rumblings there, that might give other schools a better shot with Latimer. But I do think right now he's I would say a safe lean towards Texas, but I don't know if it's like a slam dunk. Again, I'm really not operating under there being any such thing as a lock at this point in recruiting. So, but yeah, I think the Texas crystal ball is a good safe choice right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how quickly his recruitment unfolds, because there's a lot of cross recruiting going on here. I mean, you got Texas on Savion Osborne, Texas on Amari Latimer, right? Are they going to wrap either of those guys up? Does Michigan have an opportunity? How much of an opportunity do they have to close the gap with an Amari Latimer, or does that recruitment get closed up quicker? I know there were some rumors about him having a hastened, quickened recruitment. So we'll see on that to see if that is indeed the case. But I mentioned, Brice, that Michigan, they've been trailblazing through the state of Virginia, from the Tidewater area all the way up to northern VA. I mean, they throughout the state, the entire state of Virginia, they have blanketed the whole state. And so I want to start off though, staying with the running back position. And I said that Michigan went to see Savion Hiter. I think that was maybe their last stop in the state. I know they didn't start out there, but it was the entire contingent. It was Sharon Moore, Sean McGee, Chip Lindsey, of course, Tony Alford, Grant Newsom. I mean, the whole contingent made it over there, and this is a big time guy for the Maize and Blue.
He's a 5-star talent. I mean, this is a guy that Michigan's been recruiting for pretty long, and they've made him a top priority. Tony Alford has done a great job, like great job in just 2026 running back recruiting. 5'11", 182. So composite, he's the number 14 overall player, number 1 running back in the country. 25 offers. He's got Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee. I mean, he's got some pretty big heavy hitters, but he's been on record and basically said, like, Michigan is one of those schools that not only do I like them, but they're kind of more towards the top than in the middle of the pack. And so I think a big thing for him is just that continuous getting him up on campus. And I know he and his family are working on trying to get back. And he's been to campus a few times, but just kind of that repetition. I'm not saying he's got to do a Trey Taylor and come a million times. It would be lovely. But if you can get a kid like this caliber on campus and sell him that new look offense that Chip Lindsey is probably talking to him about in that picture right there, then that's what you want to do. And a cheat code for any Michigan fan that's kind of like, is this a guy Michigan's recruiting? Is like, how high is he up there? If you look to the right of that picture and you see Sean McGee, who's the GM and kind of like the NIL guy from Michigan, so to speak. If you see him and he's seen a kid, there's a good chance, good probability that kid's pretty high up on their board. So Savion's high up on everyone's board, but this is probably their tip top, like Steve likes to say, type of target. And almost, I don't want to say gotta have it, but man, if you land him and you pair him with Bryce Underwood, you're talking about a crazy looking backfield on top of what they already have in the fold as well.
I think he's rightfully ranked as the number 1 back in the country. 100%. His film is ridiculous. Right? I mean, that's a rightful 5-star ranking, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, they want to pair him with Bryce Underwood, but they also really want to pair him with Javion Osborne, it feels like, too, right? And both those guys have been up to campus multiple times. And again, kids aren't ever publicly naming leaders anymore. I think it's rare, but I think the argument could be made that Michigan could lead for both those guys right now as things stand this very moment. Doesn't mean they'll close one, both, or either of them out. But I think if things were done today, I think both those guys could easily be Wolverines. So, but yeah, Sean McGee being there is a very clear indicator that Michigan is super serious about, a certain guy.
Yeah, man. And Tony Alford, it sounds like Tony Alford has done a good job of laying the foundation really early. Getting in, getting FaceTime early, getting them up early, being able to establish an early relationship before the floodgates, really, because the floodgates are really wide open now, right? Everybody and their mom is on this dude now. So the fact that you already have a relationship established is absolutely great. Now it's a matter of, are you one of the schools that can get them up in the spring? Because that now you're jockeying for position, right, fellas? I mean, this dude, it's going to be, you're going to have 30 schools trying to get him on. He can't go everywhere. in the spring? Are you going to be one of the schools that happens to be able to get him out? I think Michigan's going to be one of those schools.
Yep. Was it Georgia, Ohio State, I think Tennessee, right? A few other schools that are involved there.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, nobody's going to that. And that's kind of another thing I feel like in the NIL era, I guess, is you can name top lists, but if schools keep calling, I don't think the door is shut on any major program if things kind of fall right, and some phone calls are made. So, but all that being said, if a top flight guy like him, it could end up, because say all things are even NIL wise, it's still gonna end up coming down to like that relationship building and just that kind of the same stuff it always has, like the feeling on campus, the plan. Which if Michigan hasn't convinced running back recruits by now that it's a great place to develop and to be, that they probably never will. But yeah, big timer. Probably one of my favorite, just flat out prospects in the class. Honestly,
he's the number one running back in the country. For like some guys, you can debate like is he number one? There's no debate. like consensus number one. I think he's number one on all the services, isn't he? I think
so.
He really is consensus number one across the board.
Yeah, the composite and 24/7. And I just want to point out too, I've seen comments before and remarks of Tony Alford recruiting and kind of the class he just brought in with Donovan Johnson and Jasper Parker. I wouldn't have any worries with those two guys personally. I mean, maybe we have to see with Donovan Johnson, but at least with Jasper Parker, I think that's a safe bet. That one's going to hit. I feel pretty confident that's going to be a great take by Tony Alford. And so here's the other thing. And I know Michigan fans don't want to talk about it, but Travion Henderson, who recruited him?
Yeah.
Right? So
hey,
it's not like he can't land big time guys. He's done it in the past.
Yeah.
And this is just another example, right? Of if he could do it.
Yep. So that one would be interesting to see. But that was one of several stops down in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Steve, you alluded to this. They have prioritized the Commonwealth. They were all over the state, down in the Tidewater area. So let's go down. Let's go down to the Tidewater area and talk about a receiver they saw down there, down in Oscar Smith, Travis Johnson. Now, receiver recruiting is gonna be interesting. Not just Travis Johnson, just receiver recruiting in general. Because
it always is.
It's not just about the money. That is becoming very, very clear. It's not just about NIL. If Michigan could NIL their way out of receiver recruiting, they'd be fine. It's why I give Ron Bellamy a ton of credit for the job he did getting Andrew Marsh after Bryce Underwood. It is the best recruiting job. And make no mistake, I'm looking at the entire recruiting class, and there are higher ranked recruits in the class than Andrew Marsh. Make no mistake. There are higher ranked recruits, but I'm just talking about the difficulty of getting a guy. Getting Andrew Marsh is the best recruiting job in that class after Bryce Underwood, considering what you had to overcome. Michigan, the reputation they have for not throwing the football, what they put on the field this year, not throwing the football, what they had committed at the time, because Bryce Underwood was not committed at the time. Man, and who you were recruiting against, the entire state of Texas and all those other, man, that's unbelievable work. That's unbelievable work. Getting a top 100 guy out of the state of Texas a receiver committed to Michigan. Unbelievable work. Now coming over to Travis Johnson, Steve Lorenz, Tidewater receiver, big time guy. I say the name Travis Johnson, I start shaking because Travis Johnson is one of the biggest recruiting losses in Michigan history. You're hoping
Jeez.
that this Travis Johnson goes a different way. So tell Michigan fans about Travis Johnson, Oscar Smith High School down in Chesapeake, Virginia.
Yeah, Oscar Smith brings back some. I mean, a lot of these schools actually bring back some memories. I know one of the kids we'll talk about is out of Hermitage High School versus Derek Green. You know, it's like so these high schools down there bring up a lot of old memories. Travis Johnson, 6'3", top 150 receiver. Probably one. Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan's been after him pretty heavily for a while. Probably not a name we've myself maybe is not talked enough about on the message board. You know, I think he's a name people are familiar with because he's been up to campus, I believe, at least one time.
He came up with his mom.
Yep. So there's a connection to West Virginia too. I believe his mom at least went there. I don't know if like another family, right? Yeah. So there's a connection to West Virginia. But yeah, I mean, a top 150 kid out of an area, that Michigan has had. They've had some success in the Tide. I mean, yeah, it does. That brings back like Quinn Blanding. Like just all kinds of. That was when I first started covering recruiting. Was when Michigan was really recruiting that area hard. But yeah, a guy who, when they're off the road, I'm going to not fix it, but just complete the top target list on the site. He's absolutely a name that will be there. And I'd actually argue if I don't think we were going to talk about him, but is it Davion Brown, also out of Virginia, nicknamed Fat Rat. One of the coolest nicknames I think I've ever come across since I've been doing this. Another top 150-ish, I believe. Michigan saw him as well, and I think he'll be a top target. So, so a couple Virginia 4-stars who are pretty darn good receivers. I know Brown's just got Georgia. He was on their campus, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, Travis Johnson probably could end up in that tip-top sort of category eventually, especially if they're able. Again, a lot of this comes down to they're on the road, they're grinding like crazy. A lot of the fruits of that labor come down to whether or not they can get a kid up on campus during the spring.
Yeah, man. And so not the only stop in the state of Virginia. That's just one of many there, Brice. They went up to Northern VA. You go up to Loudoun County, up in Leesburg, Virginia. And there is a big offensive lineman by the name of Carter Scruggs that they dropped in on to see.
Yeah. 6'6", 280. He is the number 123 overall prospect, non 24/7 composite. He's got about 20 offers, and this is a guy that Michigan really, really likes. I know that Brand Newsom has done a great job. He's been up to campus. I want to even say he's camped before at Michigan. So this is a guy that obviously not only does he have interest, he had interest enough to camp at Michigan and kind of show off what he could do in front of the coaching staff. A lot to like about his game. Big, physical. He's got, again, we talk about kind of like that position flexibility. I think he could play maybe some inside, probably going to stay at tackle. But it's so interesting because of just that offensive line board and just how many guys they're really on. Carter's the guy that, as many of the fans want to talk about certain guys like Malachi Lee and Zayden Krempin and Gregory Patrick, and all these other guys. Carter Scruggs does not get mentioned as much, but he probably should. I think Michigan sits in a really good spot with him. I know he likes Penn State, he likes Alabama, he likes, Clemson, but Michigan has done a really good job in this recruitment. And so for them to stop by to see him really meant a lot. I'm going to have an update on our message boards about that, but he was really, really, really appreciative of Michigan coming to see him, and he's already talking about trying to get back up to Ann Arbor as well.
All right. There's a cornerback from Roanoke, Virginia Steve Lorenz, that we know is a top guy. He's not rated according to 24/7 Sports, but he's rated very high on Michigan's board. We know Lamar Morgan is all over him. A young man by the name of Jazeel Hart.
Yep. So Hart was in town for the barbecue in July, and yeah, we'll get a ranking and rating on him. It's kind of crazy that there isn't one. But rest assured, yes, on Michigan's board, he's very up near the top. If he's absolutely a take, right, and absolutely a guy that they've been really targeting the heck out of for probably heading into the barbecue and then coming out of the barbecue. I think he's really been a top priority for them since then. This is another one where I think you could argue that Michigan is in front right now. I do think Penn State, once again, which Penn State, always recruits Virginia really, really hard. I mean, I feel like it's one of their main efforts is always in Virginia. So I think they're involved as well. But yeah, Michigan's done a great job. They were up there. Yeah, multiple staff members up there to see him again. He's gotten 2 visits. I think it's every 2 weeks or so you can go see see a kid again or whatever. Michigan went and saw him the first week, and then they brought back more of the bigger names when they were making their run through Virginia this week. So yeah, great looking young player. Again, you never know what they're going to be ranked or rated when they haven't had one this long. I would assume they'll probably start them out somewhere in the 3-star range, but not being treated like a 3-star caliber prospect by Michigan by any means.
So you look at other guys. Who are some of the other guys Michigan dropped in on in the state of Virginia, fellas?
I mean, he kind of mentioned the Derek Green school, but Andre Clark, he's one of the top guys in the state. He's a safety DB. He can do quite a bit. And that's a guy that, has been on Michigan's radar for quite some time. Lamar Morgan has talked to him a ton. And I think looking at that recruitment from afar, Michigan is probably one of his top schools-ish right now. A lot to like about him. 6'1", 175. He's listed as a corner, but he also has like a safety rating. So for me, that's basically saying he could probably do both, to be honest. That's like a Leo Delaney, kind of like he's listed as interior, but he's probably more of a tackle, right? So that's kind of look at Andre Clark. Really good, really, really good, fine prospect. He's been up to campus. He actually, after Michigan beat Alabama, sent a personal text to Lamar Morgan just saying like, hey, I was super impressed by the DB play, Jared Hill, all the guys in the back end, Zeke Berry, and just kind of how they competed against some of the top guys Alabama has. And so I think you don't see that very often. Top prospects kind of reaching out to coaches and kind of having that dialogue right away after the game. And so I like where they sit, but that was the guy they also stopped by to see while they're in Virginia.
And then the other big name, one that I think Michigan might be in it. I don't know if they're near the top, but Darius Gray, top 100 offensive lineman out of Richmond, also is a guy who, I think he's got like a top 10 or top 12 or something. Michigan's in it. But yeah, another guy that I'd say they've made him a pretty decent priority. Again, it's mutual though. It's like, I think he's more interested in other schools. I think Michigan has picked up on that. I think there's other guys they're recruiting a little bit harder, but definitely a name to keep in the back pocket for sure. I mean, I don't think they're going to stop recruiting him anytime soon, but yeah, I think he's ranked 41st overall in the composite. So a big time prospect out of Richmond. And, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you could argue there's 6 or 7 like legit top targets in Virginia this cycle.
And my bad, not Kevin Johnson, Kevin Newsom from Chesapeake. Kevin Newsom,
the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, back in 2008, committed to Rich Rodriguez, and then decommitted. Wound up going to Penn State. I don't know where he finished. I don't think he finished at Penn State. But yeah, that was he was from Chesapeake, and then I think his brother wound up going to Oscar Smith as well. So Yeah, that was an interesting recruitment. That was that the last Tidewater guy. Last Tidewater guy that they got. Anyway, yeah, really, really prioritizing the state of Virginia. Be interesting to see if this investment winds up working out in Michigan's favor, because you would think, given Virginia Tech where they are, Virginia hasn't been that strong. ACC region seems like it kind of seems like it's ripe for the plucking, and yet you'd also have, it's an interesting time because you also have a long time sort of NFL Hall of Famer stepping in to Bill Belichick. Now, does that throw a wrinkle in the plan? Do they all of a sudden want to go starting to play for Bill Belichick now?
Right.
I think that was the initial plan. Let's go in and raid ACC country when people don't want to play for the ACC anymore. But now, do they all of a sudden say, wait a minute, do you want to stay and play for Bill Belichick now?
I just still can't believe he's in the college game. It blows my mind. I mean, seeing these pictures of him on recruiting visits and stuff, I'm just like, what bizarro world are we living in? It's going to be super fascinating to see if it works out or how long he sticks. It's just like so many questions. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're Michigan or any of these other schools, he comes up there, I'm negatively recruiting the heck out of him, as far as like, he's not going to be here. He'll be gone well before your 4 years are up. He's going to go back to the NFL someday, but yeah, just imagining like Sharon Moore going head to head with Bill Belichick for a 4-star defensive lineman out of, it's just like, it's such a weird situation, but it's kind of neat too, I guess. It's kind of interesting to have probably definitely the greatest NFL head coach of all time in the college game. So, but yeah, you're right. Virginia, meh. Virginia Tech hasn't done anything under Brent Pry. Penn State, really, like I said, I think has always kind of been the one big program that has always put a lot of resources into Virginia. And yeah, I mean, a few of the guys that we talked about are definitely considering Penn State too. So Penn State, North Carolina might be the two big programs to keep an eye on there.
Our other proud sponsor, Passes. Now, folks, if you are aware of Michigan's NIL partnership, groundbreaking partnership with Passes, then let us remind you about what it's all about. In the day and age of NIL, student athletes are now their own brand. They can use their name, image, and likeness to market themselves, to monetize who they are. But what does that mean? When they sign endorsement deals, how can they go out and actually use that to make money? If I go out and I sign a deal with Ford, how do I actually go out and make money on that? Where do I go out and represent Ford? How do I go out and represent Ford? It used to be I just go out. Do I just go on social media and say, hey, go buy a Ford? Do I just go on Twitter and say, go buy a Ford? The day and age of that being an effective marketing strategy is over. Enter Passes. Now, through Michigan's NIL partnership with Passes, student athletes at the University of Michigan now have a vehicle through NIL to package themselves in a way that they never had before. Because Passes is a platform that allows them to take their likeness. It is a platform that they can take that likeness, and through the already established partnerships that Passes has, they can take that likeness and use those partnerships and use the Block M and merge their likeness with those partnerships to market themselves and those brands and the Block M in ways that allow them to make money. it's a groundbreaking 7-figure partnership for the through the University of Michigan that no other university in the country has embarked upon. And the University of Michigan was the first to do so. And the University of Michigan student athletes are benefiting from it. So they can allow you as supporters of student athletes at the University of Michigan to support them directly. So you can go to the Passes platform at passes.com and you can go to student athletes who have their Passes profiles, and you can support them by viewing their content. You can support them by viewing their merch and purchasing their merch. So for instance, we actually took a look at some of their merch, and let's take a look at one of theirs. And how about this? Ben, producer Ben, can we take a quick look at Evie Johnson's merch real quick? Just as a for example, so the people can see Evie Johnson's sort of platform on the Passes platform. So for instance, this is her merch front door on the Passes platform. So you can go on the platform. This is something, for instance, that all student athletes who have a profile on Passes can do. You can go on. So she has this sweatshirt. I'd rather be at the big house, for instance. Let me see another piece of merch she might have on there. Producer Ben, is there another one we can see? What was that? There's another one. I don't know if producer Ben would. Maybe that Devin might. I think Devin might like that one. Devin Gardner might like that one. Do we have another one? Let me see another one. Producer Ben. Let's see. Pull up another one. Ah, that one's for Buckeyes right there. That one's for Buckeyes. There we go. Buckeyes would like that one. That's a good one for Buckeyes. I like that one, Evie Johnson. That one works. So you get an example of what the store for all of these student athletes, whether you go and you see the video content that they have, all the different, whether it's apparel, it could be. I know Channing Goodwin has like a recruiting advice that he sells on his profile. All of these types of content offerings or merchandise offerings or endorsement opportunities are available via the Passes platform. And it's just going to expand with time. An innovative NIL platform via Passes and exclusively available for student athletes at the University of Michigan. And our Passes are our partner here on the Recruiting Insider, Passes. All right, fellas, one more recruiting stop that I know producer Ben brought up before we get out of here, and that was a young man that I actually don't know very much about, and you guys might be more familiar with him, but a young man out of Malvern Prep, High School. Let me pull him up, and maybe I could pull him up on the screen, or maybe producer Ben can pull him up on the screen here real quick. It looks like Sharon Moore dropped by Malvern Prep. Was this today that he made it over to see Jackson Ford? Now, if Sharon Moore is making it by solo to see a 6'5", 230-pound edge in a 2026 class that I'm now not ranked according to 24/7 Sports right now, but it clearly a guy that is high on the board for Sharon Moore. Fellas, this seems like a dude that the Wolverines are coveting at this moment.
Yeah, so Malvern Prep. Yeah, Jackson Ford's a name that Michigan got in on him pretty early, actually. He's also been to campus, I believe, for a game this season. And for my 2 cents is probably still, there's actually, Sam, there's 2 profiles for that kid. The one doesn't, it's really annoying. The one doesn't have a ranking and rating. I think we have him as a 4-star, like a low 4-star. Yeah, it's something I don't have to fix it, but I'll probably be the one to fix it. But anyway, Michigan's been recruiting him really hard. The other thing though, too, he's not the only one at Malvern Prep that Michigan is recruiting pretty hard. Interior, a big boy, Cameron Brickle, which is a great name for an interior defensive lineman. I feel like it was also part of that stop as well, and is a top target for Michigan. So yeah, Malvern Prep definitely a school to watch, because I believe those are both also guys that'll be moving up to top target once I finish up the board as well with edge and everything. So yeah, I mean, for Michigan, for Lou Esposito too, to not a total tangent here, but I mean, it's really a lot of DC, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey for him, which there's some really good D line. There's a couple guys at Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, I believe he's seen multiple times. Areas that he's really comfortable recruiting, obviously. So, Carter Meadows at Gonzaga Prep in DC, a school obviously Michigan's very familiar with Kanoa Winston, Evan Link. I mean, they've gotten guys there pretty consistently. So, yeah, but both Ford and Brickle are top targets. Ford, even where we have him ranked right now, I don't think he's done moving up. I think matter of fact, I think 4-star was his initial rating, which is always a good sign. But again, Penn State, probably the primary competition in his recruitment, as you would expect. Brickle, I'm not 100% sure on, but I have to assume as an in-state interior that Penn State's involved there as well. So yeah, that whole Virginia, the Eastern Seaboard, Virginia, the DMV, with Pennsylvania sprinkled in there in New Jersey, are, really, really important spots for Michigan this cycle.
And by the way, programming note or recruiting note, confirmation, Nazahir Mathis this weekend. Nazahir Mathis visit this weekend to Michigan. So he is off the board for the Wolverines. So that visit will not be happening for the Maize and Blue. So you can cross that one off the list. So I would assume that if Michigan pursues an edge, that edge would come in the portal. That they will get some edge help from, in some capacity anyway, from Jayshawn Barham. Now, to what extent remains to be seen. I don't think that it's going to be a wholesale move by Jayshawn Barham to edge. I think there was some talk of that at some point in this offseason. But what I heard from the inside during the offseason is that his preference was not to make a wholesale switch. I mean, think about it. You got Derek Moore coming back, who obviously is a starter on one side, and you look at the game he's looking to really up his profile and hopefully really improve his stock. But you got TJ Guy coming back on the other side, right? So, if you're playing the numbers, that's not to say that there aren't enough snaps to go around. But if you're wanting to be a starter, I mean, how does that really work?
Yep.
So you can kind of see how he might be thinking along those lines. If he's saying, I want to play edge, but I'm maybe not necessarily be a full-time guy at that position. So I think he'll play some edge, but he'll play some linebacker and kind of shift accordingly. So I think you'll see Jayshawn Barham kind of split time in those rooms, and maybe they'll add someone in the portal at edge, depending on who becomes available. And rest assured, I think based on the movement that you see with coaches, I mean, think about it. Notre Dame has a lot of guys going in the portal based on Al Golden going to the Bengals, right? You're going to have guys going in the portal after spring ball, so there'll be some guys available.
What Notre Dame just had 2 starting offensive linemen and another 4-star recruit who hadn't seen the field yet, but may have at some point, along with the defensive guys. So yeah, I mean, I think, would we say that the winter portal maybe a little bit underwhelming over, not Michigan's haul necessarily, but just overall, if you look at the list of players who entered last year in the winter cycle compared to this, felt like last year. So I'm almost wondering if the spring will be a little bit more eventful this offseason. But like you said, Sam, like if you're Barham, there's no reason that the full-time shift doesn't make a whole lot of sense necessarily, especially, I mean, I think TJ Guy is going to break out like at a national level next year. I mean, you can already see what he's doing. Dominic Nichols played a lot as a true freshman, so there are guys at that position. So, but yeah, this ends outside of waiting on Ty Haywood, but then I think you can pretty much wrap up the 2025 recruiting cycle for Michigan. So,
yep. Well, listen, there is what all that means is there's a lot to follow. We'll be here to help you walk through it, guide you through it like we always are. And hopefully we'll have a reaction episode to a commitment. That's what we hope to do in between regular weekly episodes of the Recruiting Insider. We'll get back to our regular rhythm now, right, folks? Until then, we hope you enjoyed this return episode of the Recruiting Insider. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, folks.